consensus.
Yes. And, well, I mean, I'm definitely in favor of a nonpartisan, third-party group drawing those lines. I mean, obviously, gerrymandering is a huge issue, and I think this gets back to the idea of representation. You see in so many elections in these districts that there were actually more votes cast for Democratic candidates, and, just how lines are drawn and things. A minority sometimes is representing the district. So I think it's definitely important that we see a third-party, nonpartisan way to draw these lines. Yeah, I think this is going to be a key issue moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. This has been really great.
Yeah.
So hopefully some of our listeners who are in or near your district can come help out. And we're just so pleased we got the chance to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
I just wanted to do a quick plug for a little something I've been working on. So my name is Tao, and I own a small crafting-related business called Nerd Bird Bakery. I'm doing a reprint of my feminist knit club tees. Are you a craftivist, or do you know of a craftivist? I'd love for you to check it out. So 100% of the profit on the sale of this tea will be donated to progressive candidates running in the midterm election, especially those running, tough races in red states. And the best part, I've teamed up with your lovely podcaster, Kelly, to make the decision on what campaign funding will go to. So if you're interested, if you're a knitter or a crafter, or if you know someone that is, please take a gander over at my website, nerdbirdmakery.com, to buy a feminist knit club tee. And let's get this blue wave rolling. Thanks, y'all.
We have with us today Lillian Cheesman. Hi, Lillian.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. And I got to tell you, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was because of your email address and your website.
Yes. I can thank my fiance for that. We were tossing around. My last name really is Cheesman, and I really was born in Wisconsin, and I suffered terribly as a child because you can imagine all of the names I was called as a child. And so we were playing around with, well, if I'm going to have this last name, we have to just go with it. And he came up with Wisconsin Likes Cheese. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. I drew the line at the campaign committee. We were considering having people actually write out checks to Wisconsin Likes Cheese, but that seemed to be too wordy. So it's Friends of Cheeseman if you want to make a donation. But yeah, it was a good time.
You're in the 15th Assembly District?
Yes, the 15th Assembly District is parts of West Dallas and the northern part of New Berlin in Wisconsin. So I actually span two counties. It's Milwaukee County and Waukesha County, which makes it very interesting to campaign and talk to people because the issues are kind of different in the two areas.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What have you done up to this point, and why did you decide to run for state assembly now?
Sure. So I am a lawyer. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin Law School in 2008. And I have worked as a prosecutor, and now I'm working as I'm a small business owner and partner in a small law firm here in West Dallas. And in between, in the past 10 years, I've done a lot of political work for a variety of candidates. And I've also worked pretty consistently on voter protection issues. In fact, in the 2014 governor's race, I was running the voter protection program for the Democratic Party for the state of Wisconsin. And in 2014, for those who don't remember, that was the year when our voter ID law changed 3 times during the course of the one election, which drove me a little insane. That was not a good time for me. So I care passionately about improving the situation for everybody in Wisconsin, and especially the people of West Dallas and New Berlin, because the current laws are kind of leaving them behind and putting them in a worse situation than they started out in. And I've seen this a lot, actually, as a lawyer now that I'm practicing law again. Just little things where, frankly, we have some poorly drafted laws that have bad unintended consequences that really hurt regular people who are just struggling day to day to pay their bills and send their kids to school. So I saw that there was a need to run for office. And even though this is kind of the worst time in my life to run for office, I decided that I needed to step up and at least try.
So my husband grew up in West Dallas, and so I've always heard all these wonderful nostalgic stories of how great West Dallas is, and, you got to ride the bike down the street to get candy and stuff. But maybe for people who haven't heard these stories for the past 10 years, could could you tell us a little bit about the area and the people who are there?
Sure. Well, West Dallas, I think, has traditionally been a very blue-collar suburb of the city of Milwaukee. It's actually the second largest city in Milwaukee County, and that surprises people. It's really big. It's a really complex city, and there's a lot going on in it. We also have a little bit of a reputation in Milwaukee County, at least, for having a lot of bars pretty much on every corner, and that is fairly accurate, I will say. It's just a lot of people who are middle class, hardworking, and just trying to do the best they can for their families.
One of the things I really liked about the issues section of your website is where you talk about clean government. I was wondering if you could talk about what that means and sort of what your vision is for clean government in Wisconsin.
Right. So I see problems at all levels. I mean, and I'm talking from the governor on down to our police departments, where we have certain procedures and we have rules that we're supposed to be following, and they're not being followed. So, for example, we have had on kind of more the state level, we've had a lot of avoidance of open records laws and attempts to diminish our open records laws. And Wisconsin used to be a leader as far as having open and accountable government, and that's been eroded in the past few years. And then we move on down to the more local level where, frankly, I'm a criminal defense attorney. That's part of what I do. And so I see instances, and this isn't just West Dallas specific, this is just in general in my cases, and I have cases in many parts of the state, where the police aren't following the rules sometimes, and that creates problems. I'm for following the rules and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be. I'm on the side of cops when they're doing things right, and I'm on the side of victims when the cops are doing something wrong. So I want to make sure that we're using our procedures to make sure that we're all doing our best to achieve justice for everyone. And so I don't see this as a problem. It's a culture that has started to creep into Wisconsin where we just do what's expedient and what's easiest rather than doing what's right. And I want to restore a high standard of ethics and accountability to all levels of government, especially at the state legislature, though. So as a lawyer, I'm held to a certain code of ethics where, lawyer jokes aside, there are all those jokes about liar, liar, or whatever. Lawyers are not allowed to lie ever. Like, technically, it's a violation, and in theory, you could get disbarred for lying about any small little thing. Reality is, no, that doesn't happen. But I feel strongly that that's a standard we should strive for in government. And I'd like to see our politicians be more honest.
I would have thought that a district in Milwaukee County would be Democratic, but the incumbent is a Republican and has been in that office since the 2012 election. And it looks like last time around he wasn't even challenged. So can you talk a little bit about, why is it that this part of Milwaukee County, although we think of Milwaukee as being Democratic, that this assembly district has voted Republican, has had an unchallenged Republican, and do you think that it can flip this time?
So I'll start with the easy question. I think it can flip. I think especially in a midterm election where we have a lot more interest in the outcome than we have had in the past, I think that this can flip. So first of all, Wisconsin has some of the most gerrymandered assembly districts in the country. And this district, even though it's actually fairly rectangular, it's still a product of that extreme gerrymandering. So that's one reason why it stays Republican a lot of times. The other issue is if it were all within Milwaukee County, yeah, it would probably be easier for a Democrat to win. But again, this is more of a 50-50 district where part of it's in Milwaukee County and part of it's in Waukesha County. And the culture in the two counties is fairly different. And that's a little bit of a challenge for me running because I am from the West Dallas side. So I have to get a little bit more in touch with the New Berlin side to make sure that I'm representing their interests. But it's also West Dallas as a city, which there are three assembly districts, at least, that represent West Dallas. West Dallas has always been a swing district. It's a very 50-50 district. So the city of Milwaukee is very Democratic, but the county of Milwaukee is a lot more of a toss-up in a lot of areas. I'd say it's the result of gerrymandering, and it's the result of, I think, maybe past candidates not speaking to the issues that are most important to the people in the district. I'm hoping to change that because I'm really interested in doing what's best for everyone in our district and everyone in the state, and making sure that I'm representing not only my views, but also more conservative views. My fiance is actually much more conservative than I am. And so I enjoy getting into policy arguments with him, and he's helped me refine my positions to make them better. So I'd hope he would keep doing that, whether or not I like it. He would keep yelling at me about his positions. And I would think that's part of the reason why I think I'd make a better legislator, because I'll listen to all sides and, take those corrections into account.
What a novel concept, arguing over policy. I seem to remember we used to do that in this country.
Yeah, the arguments in our household is really, they are just really strange. I mean, I think the arguments that I have told him, I'm no longer interested in arguing with him about it. And he needs to go to talk to other Democrats about it, because I'm sick of, we're not getting anywhere. It's more about Sheriff Clark, who's no longer our sheriff in Milwaukee, thank goodness, about whether or not he's a Democrat. And it frustrates him that somebody can run to be on the Democratic ticket and they're not even a member of the Democratic Party. And that's what happened with Sheriff Clark. He wasn't a member, but he still ran as a Democrat, and that's how he won. And so that's the most recurrent fight that we have, and I'm sick of that fight. We're done. I'm not talking to. It happened this morning. I'm not talking about it anymore. We're done.
Tell him he needs to get a podcast.
No, totally.
Oh dear God, no.
So I want to ask you about some of your hobbies, because on your website, your hobbies include Irish dance, competing in triathlons, Dungeons and Dragons, gardening, knitting, and playing computer games.
Yes.
So that's a pretty diverse range of hobbies.
I'm a crazy person. I have a lot of really weird interests. I think of myself as a stealth geek. So what would you like to know?
Well, I'm a knitter, so that's the part that interests me the most.
I'm a little bit of a reluctant knitter. I think the only thing I've successfully knitted or crocheted, and I'm not even sure which I prefer, because I kind of go back and forth on those two, is a Jane hat from Firefly.
You are
That's
a geek.
Probably the most successful thing that, oh yes, I am. In fact, I believe the last Jane hat I made was for one of my fiance's family members for Christmas a number of years ago. And I was actually finishing it, like the ear flaps. I was finishing the ear flaps while we were at his family's Christmas. And I'm sitting there like furiously knitting. And nobody in his family understood why I'm sitting there like knitting like crazy. They're all looking at me like I'm really weird. This is very early in our relationship. And they couldn't figure out because I'm trying to get it done before the gift exchange. And so finally I finish it, and then the gift exchange happens, and I just toss it at the person I was giving it to. I was like, Merry Christmas! And that explained everything for them.
So along with the sort of geek aspect of some of your hobbies, you also have been mentoring a high school robotics team, and you're on the board of the Milwaukee Robotics Coalition. Could you talk a little bit about that and why you think it's important to be mentoring high school students in robotics?
Sure. Well, Doug and I do not have children. We don't plan on having children, but we actually like them, which maybe is a little strange. And so we decided to get involved in high school robotics because it's a great opportunity for kids to learn about science and, frankly, gain some real world experiences that will help them be better innovators and, business people going forward. So I bring in, so in the 10 years that I was not practicing law or only intermittently practicing law, I did a lot of event planning and sort of fundraising efforts for a variety of groups. And so that's the kind of experience that I bring to the robotics teams, because these teams are to a large extent self-funded. So they have to reach out for donors, and they have to hold fundraisers. They have to do all that sort of things, and they have to put together business plans. And it's a really great opportunity for them, as I said, to learn real world experiences. And robotics We mentor through FIRST Robotics,